Right now, as you watch this video, $7.5 trillion is being traded every single day on global currency markets alone. Not per year, not per month, every single day. And here's the thing almost nobody tells you. That $7.5 trillion isn't moving randomly. It isn't driven by news. It isn't driven by presidents or politics or pandemics. It is moving on a machine with gears, levers, and a predictable cycle that has repeated itself, almost perfectly, for over 100 years. And once you understand how this machine works, you will never look at your bank account, your salary, or a market crash the same way again. Here's what most people think the economy is: chaos. A wild animal, impossible to predict, controlled by luck and powerful people pulling strings in secret rooms. And honestly, it looks that way, especially when you're watching headlines scream about recessions, when your grocery bill doubles in a year, or when the stock market drops 40% and takes your retirement savings with it. But that view, that it's chaos, is the most expensive misconception you will ever hold. Because here's the truth that the world's best investors, central bankers, and economists quietly operate on: the global economy is not chaotic. It is mechanical. It runs on three forces. Just three. Force number 1. Long-term productivity growth. Slow, steady, unstoppable. Humans get smarter, more efficient, more innovative. Over the last 100 years, global real GDP has grown at roughly 2 to 3% per year, almost like clockwork. Force number 2. The short-term debt cycle. A 5 to 8 year wave of boom and bust, expansion and recession. You've lived through several of these already. 2001, 2008, 2020. Force number 3. The long-term debt cycle. A massive, once-in-a-generation wave that builds quietly for 75 to 100 years, then crashes with catastrophic force. The last one peaked in 2008. Before that, 1929. Most people live their entire financial lives without ever learning these three forces exist. They react to the noise, the headlines, the social media panic, the water cooler gossip, and completely miss the music underneath. You are about to see the music. Let's start at the absolute bottom. The smallest building block of this entire machine. A single transaction. That's it. The global economy, all $105 trillion of it, is nothing but billions of transactions happening every second of every day. Your Netflix subscription, a government buying fighter jets, a corporation acquiring a competitor. All of it follows the same mechanical rule. Price equals total spending divided by total quantity. Spend more money chasing the same amount of goods, and prices go up. Spend less, and prices fall. That's inflation and deflation, fully explained in one sentence. Now, here's where most people's understanding completely breaks down. When you spend money, that money comes in one of two forms: cash or credit. Here's a fact that will genuinely disturb you. In the United States, the world's largest economy, the total amount of physical cash in circulation is about $2.3 trillion. Sounds like a lot, right? Now here's the other number. Total outstanding credit, all the debt across households, corporations, and government, is $95 trillion. That means physical money is less than 3% of total spending power in America. The other 97%? Pure credit, money that doesn't exist yet. Promises, IOUs from the future. And this is the key that unlocks everything. Because credit, unlike cash, doesn't just move value. It creates value out of thin air. And then it destroys it. Here is the most important economic law you will ever learn. It's so simple it sounds stupid. But it is the engine behind every boom and every crash in human history. Your spending is someone else's income. Read that again. Every dollar you spend on groceries is the grocery store manager's revenue. That manager's revenue becomes the salary of their employees. Those employees spend at restaurants. The restaurant pays the cook. The cook buys shoes. The shoe store owner pays rent. The landlord invests in real estate. And on, infinitely. This is what economists call the velocity of money. The faster money circulates, the wealthier everyone gets, simultaneously. Now, here's where credit becomes a superpower. Imagine you earn $50,000 a year. Without credit, you can spend $50,000. Simple, but with credit, you borrowed $10,000. Now you're spending $60,000, even though you only earned $50,000. Your extra $10,000 of spending becomes someone else's extra $10,000 of income. Their income rises. The bank sees them as more creditworthy. They borrow more, they spend more, which becomes someone else's income. Which becomes more borrowing? Which becomes more spending? This is a boom cycle. And it feels amazing while it's happening. Asset prices rise. Stock markets hit all-time highs. Everyone feels rich. The news calls it the greatest economy in history. But here's the mechanical catch. The hidden trap buried inside every single loan ever made. Borrowing is not free money. It is stolen from your future self. Today, you earn $50,000 and borrow $10,000. You live like you earn $60,000. But in the future, you have to pay that $10,000 back, plus interest. Now you earn $50,000 but can only spend $40,000. The boom of today mechanically creates the bust of tomorrow. This is not an opinion. This is accounting. It is as certain as gravity. And it applies not just to you, but to every household, every corporation, and every government on Earth. So who manages this boom-bust machine? In the United States, the Federal Reserve. In Europe, the European Central Bank. In Japan, the Bank of Japan. These are the institutions that hold the single most powerful economic lever on the planet, the interest rate. And the way they use it is almost embarrassingly simple once you see it. Economy slowing down? Lower rates. Borrowing is cheap. People borrow more, spend more, incomes rise, economy booms. Economy overheating? Inflation rising? Raise rates. Borrowing is expensive. People borrow less, spend less, incomes fall, economy cools. That's it. That is the entire playbook. But here's the dirty secret they don't teach in school. Every boom the central bank creates plants the seed of the next bust. When the Fed dropped rates to near zero after the 2008 crash, they sparked a decade-long credit boom. Asset prices soared, the stock market tripled, real estate boomed in every major city on Earth. But all that credit has to be repaid. And when the Fed raised rates aggressively from 2022 to 2023, the fastest rate hike cycle in 40 years, suddenly millions of people who'd borrowed at cheap rates couldn't afford their debt anymore. The machine is always running. The cycle is always turning. You just need to know where you are in it. Now here's where it gets genuinely scary. The short-term cycle? That's manageable. 5 to 8 years. It hurts, but you recover. The long-term cycle? That's a completely different beast. Over decades, something insidious happens. Every time a short-term cycle ends, and the economy recovers, people don't fully pay down their debts. Why would they? Times are good again. Banks want to lend. Borrowers want to borrow. So total debt never quite resets back to zero. It always ends the cycle a little bit higher than it started. Do this for 75 to 100 years, and you build a mountain of debt so enormous, it can no longer be serviced by any normal income growth. At that point, the entire machine breaks. Here's the data that should make your hair stand up. Global debt today stands at approximately $307 trillion, more than 3 times the size of the entire world's annual economic output. In 1980, that ratio was less than 100%. In 2000, it was 180%. Today, it is over 330%. This is the long-term debt bomb. And history shows us exactly what happens when it explodes. In 2025, total global debt is at the highest level in human history. I'm not saying a crash is coming tomorrow, but I am saying this. You need to understand what happens when it does. When a long-term debt bubble finally bursts, governments can't fix it the normal way. Interest rates are already at zero. Printing more cheap money doesn't work, because the debt burden is so heavy that nobody wants to borrow anymore. Instead, they're forced into a brutal process called deleveraging, and there are only 4 ways to do it. Door number 1. Austerity. Cut spending. Fire workers. Slash budgets. The problem? Your spending is someone else's income. Cut spending, and you crush incomes across the economy. Door number 2. Debt restructuring. Tell lenders, we can't pay you back in full. Take less. Banks take massive losses. Businesses go bankrupt. Retirement savings evaporate. Deeply painful, but sometimes necessary. Door number 3. Wealth redistribution. Tax the rich. Fund the poor. Door number 4. Print money. The central bank creates new currency and buys up debt, flooding the banking system with liquidity. Danger. Do this too aggressively, and you destroy the currency. Zimbabwe printed money to escape debt. Inflation hit 89.7 sextillion% per month. In 2008, Germany's Weimar Republic did it in the 1920s. People burned banknotes for heat because it was cheaper than wood. The only successful path? Balance all 4 levers simultaneously. Apply just enough of each. to keep the total spending level stable, so incomes don't collapse. Now, you can see it, and once you can see it, you stop being a passenger. You start becoming a navigator. Because the people who understand the machine don't fear the cycle, they prepare for it, they position themselves for it, and when everyone else is confused, they already know what's happening. The machine is still running. The cycle is still turning. And it always will. The only question is, will you be ready for the next turn? If this changed how you see the world, share it with one person who needs to see it too.